Hey, it's State of State. We got your Nittany Lion update. It's a football discussion with Tom and Justin, so kick back and press play.
With former Penn State and NFL defensive back Justin King, I'm Tom Hannafin. This is State of State. This podcast is presented by BetOnline. College football season is in full swing, but so is Major League Baseball's postseason. And BetOnline is your number one source for all your baseball wagering info with up-to-the-minute stats, news, scores, and matchup breakdowns. Get the latest game odds, spreads, and totals also for the NFL and, of course, college football at your fingertips with BetOnline's real-time updates on statistics, news, and odds. Plus, BetOnline is everything you need to stay up to speed on each league championship series all the way through to the World Series. Head to betonline.ag today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Don't forget to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's B-L-E-A-V, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. State of State is presented by BetOnline, where the game starts. Also, State of State is a proud supporter of Blue White Outfitters. Blue White Outfitters was created as a retail shop meant to highlight the confidence, competitiveness, and fearlessness of the elite athletes found throughout the history of Penn State University. Check out the Lockdown U and Lawn Boys merchandise today. All sales from Blue White Outfitters directly benefit Penn State student athletes. Visit www.bluewhiteoutfitters.com today. And if you're looking for the perfect beer for Penn State football season, we've got you covered all season long with the State IPA. Special thanks to our friends at Funk Brewing for creating the best tailgate and game day beer for Nittany Lion fans. State IPA is available now at beer distributors, grocery stores, Funk's tap rooms, plus select bars and restaurants. Visit www.funkbrewing.com/beers/state-IPA to learn where and how you can get State IPA. Check out the link in the description of this podcast for more information. Must be 21 years or older to purchase. Please drink responsibly. It's Ohio State week, ladies and gentlemen. Number 7 Penn State is going on the road to face the number 3 Buckeyes this Saturday as a part of big noon kickoff on Fox. We cannot wait for this. This is a huge week for us here at State of State. Still to come here within this episode, Penn State recruiting coordinator and former legendary Penn State defensive back Alan Zemaitis is our guest to help us get ready for Ohio State. And then some breaking news here within the show. This Saturday for the live post-game show exclusively on our YouTube channel. Unfortunately, I will be absent. For all of you wrestling fans, I will be calling Bound for Glory live in Chicago. So you will be in the very good hands of Justin King and Derek Williams for a live post-game show right here on the YouTube channel. So now is the time to turn on notifications specifically for that episode. Subscribe, like us, comment, rate us for wherever you are listening. D Wheels and J King together. That should be awesome to recap the entirety of the Ohio State game the second that it gets done. We're going to get to Alan here in just a moment, but Justin, I want to spend a little bit of time with you kind of looking at this game and the matchups that are really going to decide things for Penn State. One thing looking at this for Ohio State in particular, a bevy of injuries, but the reports coming out of Columbus and Ryan Day are that the likes of Emeka Egbuka, Denzel Burke, plus running backs Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, and even Chip Trainum should be good to go for this game this weekend. Again, these are things that are kept close to the vest, but those are some really big names for Ohio State to get back. A lot of people are looking at this as Ohio State skill position players against Lockdown U, against Penn State's defense, especially Marvin Harrison Jr., who is perpetually seemingly a Heisman Trophy candidate. When you look at this game, what is going to be the tipping point for Penn State this Saturday?
I think it's a given that we lean on Lockdown U versus the receiving core of the Ohio State Buckeyes. But I'm going to take it back to the fundamentals of football of stopping the run and taking care of the line of scrimmage on the offensive side and running the football effectively. So I think that's where it's going to really come down to on Saturday is affecting those trenches on defense, making sure that they force Ohio State to take the ball to the air. Because I think that plays to Penn State's advantage, but on the offensive side, not necessarily attacking them through the air, which we probably will do, but controlling the run game and really beating up Ohio State from a physical standpoint first. And then when it starts to seep into the skill positions, really dominating the game from there on out. So like, that's what I would like to see moving forward, just from that fundamental standpoint of just thinking of like that great, good program to elite, and it all starts up front. So wanting to see them establish that dominance up front from a physicality standpoint, with the anticipation, knowing that it's going to come to the playmakers on the outside, offensive and defensive side of the ball, and banking on lockdown you to like lock it up.
You grabbed some of the words there from James Franklin from 2018. It was a heartbreaking home loss to Dwayne Haskins, late great Dwayne Haskins and the Ohio State Buckeyes, and had that famous post-game speech of, "We've been a good football program. We can be a great football program, but we're not an elite football program." This is a game that if you beat Ohio State, of the two major tests you're going to face in the regular season, that is a huge check in the win column if you can knock off Ohio State. And a lot of the national pundits believe that this is a good matchup for Penn State overall. You have a disparity when it comes to size, however, and I do want to ask Alan Zemaitis about that a little bit later on, is that, Marvin Harrison Jr., about 6'4", 200 pounds. Cade Stover is a monster, highly productive, somebody that James Franklin was lauding on Tuesday in his press conference. If you get Emeka Egbuka, even, close to 100%, hell of a threat. Julian Fleming, Xavier Johnson got a lot of playing time against Purdue as well. What do you think about this Ohio State wide receiver core, and how do you limit what quarterback Kyle McCord can do with them?
I mean, it's a talented group, and they've had production historically since being under the tutelage of Brian Hartline. I mean, just from the recruiting standpoint, bringing those guys in, we recruited Julian Fleming, recruited some of those, even like a Marvin Harrison. But even with their size, I think it comes down to obviously having a clean pocket for those guys that have an opportunity to get open. But on the other side, I feel like Penn State has done that equally good job of recruiting high-level talent to be able to match up with those receivers. I don't think we're in a deficient area from the defensive secondary of having small defensive backs, right? We might have a dynamic player like a Daquan Hardy that might be a little undersized, but Kalen King's a top 15 draft pick at perfect size at 5'11", 190. Then you got Johnny Dixon, that's 6 foot, 195. So these are solid size corners, have incredible movement skills, elite competitors. And I mean, when you talk about lockdown use, the fact that of the depth that they have from the safeties, KJ Winston, Kean Ellis, and all these different guys that can work in and cover and have position flexibility across the board. So with that being said, like, I don't think the size really leans too much to Ohio State, because it's a movement game at the end of the day. When we get down to high level football, it's a movement skills game. Obviously, if you build a organization like a Michigan does, where it's a physicality based operation, you can have some mismatches, so forth and so on. But it comes down to movement. And I think we have athletes and length on offense and defense to play with Ohio State, especially on the perimeters on defense and offense.
Flipping things, Penn State's offense obviously begins and ends with how quarterback Drew Aller it fares this Saturday. This is a homecoming of sorts, as obviously from Ohio. So getting to play in a stadium, in an environment, and against a team that everybody in his state has admired since he was a kid, and he wound up making his way to Penn State, and this has been the right home for him. I've been talking about it the entirety of the season, that it seems like this race to October 21st between Drew Aller and Kyle McCord, who's progressed further as a quarterback. And it's a really tough race to gauge at this point. If you'd asked me this maybe 4 weeks ago, when we talked to Todd Blackledge, I've been like, man, I feel a lot better about Drew Aller. But some of the experiences that Kyle McCord has had, it seems that he's settling in. Two quarterbacks that, to the point that James Franklin made yesterday, are being brought along slowly by their respective programs. And you see that incremental growth. I don't think they're the same, but I do give Aller a slight edge. Looking at this matchup, how do you think Drew Aller should handle this type of environment, considering he is only entering his 7th start and he's a true sophomore?
I think the way he's been approaching games throughout this season is the way he should continue to approach this game on Saturday. Taking care of the football, taking the passes that the defense gives to you, and when you see opportunities in one-on-one matchups, let the thing hang out there. At the end of the day, I mean, now it comes down to these big moment games where you can show a little bit, play within your game, and when you have your shots, take them. I think that's like that to be the mentality of going into this game and not letting the hoopla, big noon, and just being away make you tight to where you're seeing goes to an extent of always checking down, are always looking for the easier throw, but like pressing to the extent of applying pressure to Ohio State and making it tough for them. I mean, playing in a way you got to knock out the champion. When they're home place like Ohio State, it's one of those teams where I don't think you want to just play them close and just be very safe. You have to go for the juggler. And I hope Drew takes that step in his game where it's taking care of the football, but also it's making those calculated risks and chunk and shot plays, and apply that pressure against Ohio State. Love to see that.
I would love to see it. We'll see what the health of Denzel Burke is like, defensive back. That's somebody that came out of the game against Purdue this past weekend and is their top corner. Ransom, the safety, is outstanding. Eichenberg, the linebacker, James Franklin was throwing roses his way this past Tuesday. And then everybody that's a Penn State fan remembers what JT Tuimoloau did last year and just tormenting the Penn State offense, Sean Clifford especially. How does Penn State prevent against that? If you were calling the offense, what would you do to negate a guy like Tuimoloau, Eichenberg, and the pass rush altogether that Ohio State brings?
Run at them. I think that's what you do against dominant players with the front seven. You run at them. A lot of guys are athletic and move side to side. I mean, even when we think about JT, he had a couple plays on sacks, but he made a lot of plays on screens, moving out, doing all those different things, just trying to finesse and dealing with athletes in space. I remember Eichenberg coming out of what was it? It was a Cleveland school, but I remember him as a recruit, and he was playing with a linebacker with his hair on fire. And he was one of those type of guys. So with that, you put a body on them and run at them and see if they can continue to take the pounding throughout the game. So with that, I mean, whether that's Katron and Nick Singleton and getting Trey Potts mixed in there and just throwing a dynamic running attack at them, misdirections, running at them from that standpoint. And again, at the edges, straight downhill. I think that's the only way that you negate dominant interior defensive players.
Eichenberg from St. Ignatius in Cleveland.
St. Ignatius, there we go.
Record there. Just look that up. All together for Penn State going into this game, as I mentioned, the two big games are Ohio State and Michigan. Everybody is looking at this matchup as probably the more favorable matchup for Penn State in terms of being able to win one or both of these games this year and potentially get to a Big Ten title game, potentially get to the college football playoff. Penn State has done a phenomenal job of ball security. I know a lot of people are going to point towards the first offensive turnover that went down in the first quarter against UMass of the season, by the way, 6 games in. And the first turnover didn't occur until the Northwestern game, the opening kickoff on a fumbled kickoff return. So, Penn State's done a phenomenal job in being heavy in the plus side when it comes to turnover margin. Is there one particular battle that James Frank likes to talk about it, those battles within the game that Penn State must win to beat Ohio State this weekend?
Oof, the battles that they must win. I mean, when you think about playing away, I think you have to win the special teams battle. I think that's something that we forget about a lot of times. We know about the offense and the receivers playing the defense and the offense and defense stopping the run, all those fundamental things. But I think it's going to come down to the making plays on special teams. We saw the type of boost that it had last week with Daquan making those 2 punt returns, flipping the field and having field position, whether it's from the punting, whether it's making smart decisions on fielding the punts, making sure we're not fair catching anything too close to the goal line. That whole special teams operation, all 4 phases, I'm sorry about that are operating at a high level. And I think those are the things that we want to look for to tilt, especially getting a win away in somewhere like Columbus. And I love to say it all the time, but forcing turnovers and still in possessions is the keys to victory for me.
I believe Penn State has 15 players who've registered at least 1 sack this year. The defense has been absolutely spectacular. The turnovers have come in bunches. And something you and I talked about in the recap episode after UMass is that, yes, there's a lot of turnovers being created by this defense, and this is going to be a jump in competition against Ohio State this weekend. But there's something that just tells me there's going to be opportunities for Penn State to get pressure on a young quarterback in Kyle McCord. And yes, he'll have the home field advantage, but you know this, having played at Ohio State, it can be a difficult environment, but that's a fan base that if you take them out of the equation early, they don't come back that easily. It takes some prodding. You know what I mean? Like, they can get quiet and get a little bummed out if you turn the tide in the right direction?
I don't know, man. I lived through that thing in 2017 when Saquon took the opening kickoff back. They
That
were
was
quiet,
nasty. Yeah, that
and
was
they came
nasty.
back. We were up, whatever we were up, going into the fourth, and then I see them transform into a different team. So like I'm holding my breath until we get there. But like, and like back to the special, but even in that game, the special teams, we started off with Saquon spotting at some points, making a turnover, and I mean, obviously, I forgot. I mean, I said 4 phases, but not let's not forget the kickers making our field goals and defending field goals, but just getting those 3 points when we need those 3 points. But I was more so talking about the field position and being able to have returns and making plays on those sides of the ball. But field goals are definitely important.
100%. Just again, a reminder, this Saturday, the live post-game show here on YouTube is going to be Justin King and Derek Williams. So you want to turn on notifications for that and subscribe right now. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, Alan Zemaitis will be joining us here on State of State. Penn State fans, Smack Apparel has the best gear for talking smack on game day. Head to smackapparel.com today and check out their Let There Be White tee. Also, there's Drink Up, Roar On, Saturdays We Are, and you can still get a Save a Couch, Beat WVU shirt. If you're watching this on YouTube, scan the QR code on the screen to take you to the website instantly on your phone. Visit smackapparel.com and use our promo code STATE10 at checkout for 10% off your order. That's STATE10. Again, that's smackapparel.com, promo code STATE10 at checkout. Why wear boring when you can wear smack? Are you looking for undeniably good hair and beard care? Then Maestro's Classic is perfect for you. Maestro's has beard washes, beard oils, beard butters, plus hair gels, pomades, and now body washes. It's one brand for every man. Visit maestrosclassic.com. That's MAESTROS classic.com and use our promo code STATE20. That's STATE20 at checkout for 20% off your order. Maestro's Classic, crafting a better you. Joining us this week on State of State ahead of the Ohio State game, he is currently a recruiting coordinator for Penn State football, but you probably better remember him as a legendary defensive back for Penn State between 2002 and 2005. In my opinion, one of the greatest Penn State defenders. Alan Zemaitis is joining us. Alan, we were trying to fit in all of your accolades into your lower third on the screen here on YouTube, but it really there wasn't enough space. So we appreciate you hopping on here. First of all, how are things going for you in this role as a part of the staff at Penn State, and especially of all weeks we were talking about before we started recording? It's O State week.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's going really good in terms of like recruiting right now. I mean, we just ended up getting our number one edge rusher in this class, which we're very, very excited about. Just the whole D-line class in general, just very, very pleased with. It starts up front, and we feel like, when I look back at, some of the D-line classes, I think this one, we'll see, time will tell, but this one has the potential to be one of the truly special ones in Penn State history, I believe. And then, it's O State week. I mean, it's a different, I know for me, I don't even have to look at the schedule. It hits you a certain time of year. You just, I feel different. I think we might be playing Ohio State this week. You feel what I'm saying? And just from a Big Ten perspective, it's just a different animal. It kind of, going through the Big Ten, you know each team very well, but there's a couple of teams that stand out from a fundamental standpoint, an intensity standpoint, and then for players, that's a money game. You know what I'm saying? Any play that you make in that game can potentially put money in your pocket and change your life. And your family's life. So there's a lot that goes into the game, but it's an ordinary game, people would like to say, but those that's played in this game know that this is truly one of the more special, respected games that you get to play here at Penn State.
Alan, there's a lot of outside noise obviously coming into this game, and it's because it's number 7 at number 3, Penn State at Ohio State in the shoe. I mean, there's just so many aspects to it. Big noon kickoff, Fox is behind this, 2 undefeated teams, and especially for Penn State, the conversation yearly now for the longest time has been about 2 teams on the schedule, Ohio State and Michigan. So this is the first major test, I'm sure internally for you guys. Every game is a test, but still, this is a major test to see if Penn State is capable of getting to a Big Ten title game or even a college football playoff, which I know a lot of fans are thinking about. Personally, how are you feeling going into the game this weekend? I imagine confidence is strong within the building.
Well, as my colleague DJ Bryant would say, one of our kennel members here in the recruiting department, he would say, we ain't taking the rat poisoning. Every time I open up my phone and look at my Google feed, they are saying, oh, Penn State this, Penn State that. I'm not reading into those headlines. It's going to be played between those lines, and that's where it stands. How I feel, well, this is a way different feeling that I've had in years. One, because I've been here for 3 recruiting cycles. I know that, when I wasn't working for Penn State, I felt like I know the team, but from a surface level, I really, really know the team. And then a lot of these guys that are starring in this game are guys that, myself and the rest of the kennel members here in the recruiting department, personnel department, we've helped bring in. So, so when you ask me, how do I feel? Well, the reason why we call the kennel is because, Kenny and I, sat down, our first month and said, we want to get dogs in here. And I can assure you the guys that are going to be, traveling out to Ohio State, that's the type of temperament they have. In the football world, when you say dog, you're talking about real players, guys that feel passionate about the game, got a burning desire to play the game, and then prepare like they are pros already. So how do I feel? I feel great about our guys getting a chance to play against O State in this type of environment. And let me tell you something. When you play any team at home, it's almost like, oh, if we won the game, they say, oh, okay, it's at home. I guess you're supposed to win that game. That was a hell of an environment. But the way that we're wired, in terms of Penn State and being a blue-collar team and, just Penn Staters in general, we like to roll up our sleeves and we like to battle adversity. We love when our back is against the wall. So why don't we go away and battle O State? I like that storyline a lot better. And I believe if we come out the way I believe that we're going to come out in this matchup, it's going to mean more.
Most of the defensive backs for Penn State currently, there is a size disadvantage, not only against Marvin Harrison Jr., but you look at Emeka Egbuka, Julian Fleming, Kate Stover, there's that disadvantage. So you inevitably have faced guys bigger than you, probably not too many times, but still, what has been the thought process in your career when you were playing? How do you bring those bigger guys down to size, so to speak?
Well, for me, when you talk about a bigger receiver, you're talking about, bigger surface area, you know what I'm saying? So when you're talking about playing, different techniques like press man and stuff like that, you feel good about that. But, generally, taller guys are not going to be as shifty. That's where, when you talk about Marvin Harrison, he's, that, different breed in terms of he's a taller guy, but he can move like a smaller guy. But in terms of our defensive backfield, the one thing I have a lot of pride in our defensive backfield is, we're very, very technically sound. We have all of our guys have great feet. Like if you come out and you watch in the individual work or just pregame warm up, a lot of our guys, it almost looks like, they move in unison. They have the same type of footwork. And that's due to, the coaching that they received from Coach Terry Smith. I mean, that's a very unique deal that our corners have. because he gives a wide receiver perspective, but yet he understands how to develop corners. I mean, shoot, you know, he's developed Justin King into the number one cornerback coming out of high school. There's a lot of value when you're talking to a cornerback on this is what a wide receiver is trying to do. So there's a big advantage, I think, you know, just in our development piece as a cornerback here at Penn State. But it's all about your feet. You know, we pride ourselves in playing press man. And when you're talking about playing press man, you know, guys that are novice in playing press man, they think it's a physical matchup where you're trying to wrestle guys to the ground like you see in them YouTube videos. Really, it's about positioning. It's about your footwork. So, you know, when I think about playing press man, you talk about jamming with your feet. And people are like, well, you know, what do you mean by that? Well, it's positioning. It's your feet. You get great jams because your feet are right. And they don't have to be, I'm going to knock you out. It's you preventing them from going where they want to go, staring them, knowing where your help is. And with our pass rush, you hope that you're not covering for so long. And that's kind of been, you know, a secret sauce of ours defensively, you know, and throughout the last couple of years, you see that. And our guys, you know, really play well within that technique and off of each other. And I think we have a really, really, you know, great understanding in year two under Manny Diaz with our defense. I think you see it. You know, you see we've already posted 2 donuts. I don't care who we're playing. It's about execution and feeling confident about executing whatever huddle call is played and those around you, working around you. We got that chemistry. So, you know, yes, it's going to be a very interesting matchup, that, you know, pay-per-view matchup between the defensive backs and the wide receivers, which I love. But it's a lot more that goes into it. And I believe, you know, all those components I talked about is going to, you know, really, you know, come to the forefront here come Saturday.
Alan, during your playing days, 02 through 04, unfortunately losses to Ohio State. And then when Justin arrives in 2005, it's the breakthrough, able to defeat Penn State by a score of 17-10, if I'm not mistaken, at home in Beaver Stadium. Justin, I'll turn to you on this one. What are your memories of that game? Because that was a huge turning point for the program as a whole.
I mean, for me, it was like our first, I wouldn't say our first big game, but there was a couple moments in that season, that 05 season, where we had some things that happened where we were like, hey, I think we have the makings of doing something special. It was like that fourth quarter drive against Northwestern. And then when we played Minnesota, that year, Minnesota had the 2 running backs, Marion, Barbarian.
Barber.
Yep. Rest in peace. And then who else was the other
Lawrence Maroney.
Lawrence Maroney. So that was like the big deal of them coming into the game. So that was like a hyped up game where they were ranked number 16. I remember us dominating them to the point where us going into Ohio State, I actually felt, I mean, I think the freshmen didn't feel the magnitude of the game because we were like, man, these dudes are balling, right? We just see Mike Robb kind of hurt somebody. We see AZ's making plays. Like, I'm like, they're dominating. Like, yeah, we got Ohio State. But to them, the intensity level was up here. Like, they all were seeing red. They weren't joking throughout the week and all that good stuff. And it was like the first time we had the student section whiteout. So, I mean, I just remember being like super emotional and coming out and wanting to like make plays for those guys, because like that whole season, they went through different things to get to that point than we did as freshmen coming in. Like, they went through some of the harder years that we didn't have to endure. So like the effort and equity that they had into the program was just a little different. And if anybody understood was in that 05 locker room, you weren't getting in that senior group's way. AZ, Mike Robb, Blue, and Tom Bahali. Puz was a younger guy back then, but they were on a mission. So we felt good as younger upperclassmen. Like, yeah, we got our boys. We're going into this.
Alan, what are your memories of that week, the prep, the game itself?
I mean, the first thing that I would say is we had such a huge conviction going into that season. Like, think about it. Like, you got a quarterback that never really started at Penn State, like really getting the reins as the quarterback, passing the torch, so to speak. This is the first time he's gotten that. And then you're talking about freshman wide receivers. Think about that. Like, why the hell did we think that we was going to conquer the world with guys that never played a college football game before, a quarterback that just got the reins, and yet we did have a really good defense, but you would think we was delusional. But to be honest with you, that was the bond, the conviction we had going into the season. And like JK said, which I think JK is arguably, and anybody can argue me on this one, that he is, and I would win that argument, that he's the best two-way player that Penn State has ever had. I mean, he was making plays offensively, beating all Big Ten cornerbacks like a drum as a true freshman, and then coming in and starting in our nickel package and locking guys down. And in that play, he had a big breakup against Ohio State. And that game was the biggest game at that point of the season. And I was so pumped up for that game. There was so much trash talk. And I'm sure, with the rise of social media, that it's probably a lot of talking that I'm not even aware of. But we were going against two big-time wide receivers in Ted Ginn and Santonio Holmes, and then the future Heisman Trophy winner and Troy Smith. And you're talking about a defense that had A.J. Hawk, Bobby Carpenter. You're talking about, I believe Nate Sally was a safety. You get
freshman Malcolm Jenkins.
Yeah, Malcolm Jenkins. I mean, you talk about a heavyweight bout, and let me tell you, the way that I was feeling during that game. First of all, I'm gonna tell this story. Okay, I was dressed in all black. Okay, I had a black towel. I usually put tape on my helmet, on my candy cane, my helmet. I had black on that, but I had a long black towel. Everything was black. And they were like, "Oh, that's a NCAA whatever violation. You can't wear a black towel." That kind of, it kind of like threw me off a little bit. But when I got out on that field, and I seen that wideout, okay, and we stretched right where the student section is. Tom, I didn't stretch. I got goosebumps right now thinking about it. I didn't stretch. I was pacing back and forth. Let me tell you something. Like, when I'm playing the game, I will never sit on the bench. I pace the sideline. I don't want to relax. From that point on, that's all the objective was to win that game. I remember screaming getting the student section hype. This is during stretch. Now, if anybody knew who our strength and conditioning coach was, JT Thomas and Jeremy, you would never want to go against the grain with those guys. Let me just tell you that. Okay, that's not something you're supposed to be doing. All right, so I didn't stretch, and they let me. They allowed me to get away with it because I'm a senior. This was our moment, and that's how I felt in that moment. They were not going to deny me, and I took that, not deny me, but deny us, and I took that feeling with me in life, meaning I put in the work. In my heart, I had a conviction that, and I had my brothers. You know what I'm saying? JK was one of those guys as a freshman. And if we all band together and we got one belief, why not? Because O State was O State. Why not? And it was time for us to show up and play. So a lot of memories. Kelvin Lowry, which, he's on staff now, had a huge interception. I mean, it was just a lot of good times, great competition, which I still relish to this day about the O State games. But just a lot of emotion that went in that game. And then the one thing that I'll close with the answer to your question is, and people read me the wrong way when I say this, but I'm going to say it on your show here, is when it's a big game when you taste the mace in the air. Okay? So when we won that game, people were trying to jump out onto the field, and I'm walking. I ain't never been around mace like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm walking around like, oh, what the, you know what I'm saying? Because they were spraying students back from running out on the field. I was like, I always remember that. I was like, that's a bad game because people were trying to run out on that field. But it was definitely a moment in a game that I've never forgotten.
No, that was hectic. And when you talk about that Ohio State game, it's interesting because you say the 3 freshmen coming into the game, and even Jordan and Deion, all of us, and we made impacts early into the game, like that first quarter. Derek had the touchdown, outran AJ Hawk. I had to play. I think Jordan got hit by AJ Hawk or Bobby Carpenter, somebody. But we were like heavily involved into the game. And so let's jump a little bit and tie that into the talent acquisition that you were speaking to of like finding dogs. So when you're looking at like position critical factors, you said like you got to look for guys that you guys play a lot of man. So to be able to move your feet and catch guys, I mean, it reminds me of a time in the NFL. Al Harris always talked about you catch someone at the press at like 4 yards. So when you look in and evaluate from an athletic standpoint, you guys know what you're looking for. Can you dive into a little bit more what that actual definition of a dog is when it relates to a Penn State football player? Because a dog at Penn State might be different than a dog at, I don't know, I can't say Colorado, but like USC, Bama, or somebody else. Like, how does that match at Penn State? Like, when you guys are looking for dogs, what does that mean?
Well, in terms of a defensive player, we want to find guys that are urgent in their play. When there is a play that you watch on film that that player can make that play right now, do they trigger? Do they go? Do they wait for anybody else? Okay, so I'm looking for urgency in the way that they play. I want violence. Okay, I want physicality. Okay, so when they arrive at the ball carrier, what does that look like? You know what I'm saying? And then, obviously, the times, the measurables, that, those, to me, those are non-negotiables for Penn State. You know what I mean? Like, you're not getting to Penn State if you're not running so-and-so. You're not getting to Penn State if that. But I'll give you a great example. Zane Durant. Okay. Zane Durant is, about 6'2" with his equipment and stuff on. Okay. You watch Zane Durant play the game in high school, it's like when I watch the film, it's almost like I'm reading a book, okay? The signature of who you are as a person is going to show up between those lines. I can assure you what type of person you are is going to show up. I can sense it. I can feel it. I can see it. Zane Durant played with physical. He was violent. Like when you almost got the feeling like in practice, they probably tell him to chill out because he's probably going to hurt his teammates. And the other part of a dog is mentality. And that's the thing I wanted to get into because when you talk about our 2005 team, it was a mentality. There might have been teams that might have been, might be maybe a little more talented in other areas, but it was a mentality that we made up for that lack of. Well, Zane Durant is 6'2", playing inside, which is a different beast. It's not like playing on the edge. It's not like playing corner like me and JK where we're covering all the quick guys. He's in the trenches. And when you're recruiting, you got to, without giving away, too much here, if there's a guy on our board that we really, really, really like, that we feel like, man, this is a guy that we really want to take. Well, a lot of teams out there will just look at highlight tapes. Well, we're going to take it a step further. I'm watching every game. I'm watching to see if he's celebrating with his teammates. I'm seeing if even on the hustle plays, I'm watching body language. Then you get him on the OV and you get around him. You also get around his parents. Now, Zane Durant's family, hardworking, passionate people. They raise Zane the way they raise Zane, where I'm like, I get a good sense of who the parents are. I feel like I'm peering into this young man's, care, character traits just from off the parents. Then you get around them, you get a sense like when the chips are down, I know I can count on this guy. I know it. And those, without giving too much away, yes, times, all these, measurables, they're going to be non-negotiables coming to a place like Penn State. But if there's a lack of, you have to fill that up with an elite trait or quality. Well, Zane is elite in everything that's intangible. And that's just not Zane. His class, that's basically down near everybody in that class and in the classes after him, because we do a really good job of diving into that part. So when you talk about dog, yes, athletically, all the things that you see right up on the film, but really we want to dive in what's between the ears, what's in the heart, that really separates, guys from being just a guy and guys that are being a dog. And then, what do they want in life? Well, you start getting some of those questions answered. Well, he's a Penn Stater. You feel what I'm saying? So there's a lot of layers to it. We do a really good job here. I would have to get paid some money to open up even more, but I'll give you a couple nuggets.
No, that's a really good point, because I think you shine some light on how intricate and nuanced the recruiting process is, even when you compare it to something like the NFL draft process, right? Because you figure NFL scouts and teams, they're only looking at 300-400 prospects a year. And it's just that 1 year. And that's really what it is. They go back and they're looking after them over like 3 to 6 months. We talk about the whole process, but when you talk about a recruiting class and just going through and filling in the pixels of that picture of that recruit, you're talking about from 9th grade to seeing film. You're talking about the development of the player. You're breaking down the family. It's very reminiscent of like breaking down a stock. Like, okay, this is the product. This is the CEO. This is the CFO. This is the trends that has gone, and you watch it go up or down, up and down. Because by the time you get to, these guys leaving and being deploying and going to the NFL, it's always interesting. When I used to talk to a lot of my NFL personnel friends or scouts, and like how much information that they were working on. And I'm like, man, you don't even really know who this guy is. It's like, they are who they are before they got here. And it's like, you really see that through the recruiting process. And just for the listeners that are tuning in, when someone says like, oh, a coach is a great recruiter, that's a whole system and a machine to cultivate relationships, identify traits, identify the players and the makeup that the players have that AZ was just explaining through 3 to 4 years. Essentially, you're evaluating teenagers tougher than a lot of C-level executives get evaluated before they get their jobs. And that's something that I want people to understand of like how serious this mode is from recruits, parents, because with the nuance of the landscape and transfer portal, there's a lot of confusion out here. So it's very helpful for you to shed some light on that.
Alan, as this game gets closer and closer, I was thinking back. So you were mentioning that you can smell mace in the air. I attended that 05 game. Justin and I have talked about it, and I got snuck into the student section by my brother who was in school at the time and some of his friends. And right after Tamba turned Troy Smith on his head, they were like, you need to get out of here. And they're like, why? And they're like, you smell that in the air? And you can see all the security guards on the field kind of like getting unhooked and getting ready for what could be. So you kind of had a hunch of what was going on. And then also the very low level of high school football I played in the state of Connecticut, as you put a candy cane in your face mask. I have a terrible picture of me at about 150 pounds with the same thing at wide receiver. So you certainly were in effect, even though I was playing on the other side of the ball. So that's, for me, putting my foot in my mouth earlier, I felt like I owed you that. Now that you're at this point in your career, Alan, you're building your resume now all over again, it seems, with Penn State. And when you look at guys like Kalen King, Johnny Dixon, Daquan Hardy, the ridiculous amount of safeties, it seems like there's too many to name. How much interaction do you have with these guys? And do you have to prevent yourself from being too hands-on because that's not necessarily your role right this second, or maybe it is, and we're just not privy to that?
Yeah, that's a good question. The beauty of being back at my alma mater is they're my brothers. So there's no, restriction in terms of I got to hold back from developing relationships with guys that I'm going to forever be connected to, where they can ask me for anything. It's not a question that I'm going to follow through on that. When I ask them how they're doing, I'm sincerely asking, because I'm here for you, my brother. Like it's like that. It's that deep. That's how we get down here at Penn State. And so, I see those guys all the time. And when I tell you, bro, like seeing the secondary rise, the way that they have risen since I've been here, JK going as far as like, I remember him talking to me about the lockdown U, the branding. And he was like, it was almost like he knew where it was going. And like Penn State's known for like linebackers. They never really was known for corners or secondary play. And I got a lot of pride in that. I'm here now. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not only here, but I'm working with an OG and former captain Terry Smith, which I got a lot of pride working with him. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not just going to work. It's just like when I put on the pads and I'm playing in Beaver Stadium, you're thinking like, well, I got Letterman watching me. I got to represent what these colors mean to me. You feel what I'm saying? So when I'm coming to work, that's my mindset. It really ain't work. Like, that's what my charge is being a Penn Stater. You know what I'm saying? And when I, recruit guys or guys that are on the team right now, that's what it's about, man. It's about relationships and memories. And anything that I can give to them that I've experienced that can help them, I ain't gatekeeping that. They get all of that because you decided to come here, and that's my duty as an old head here at Penn State. You know what I'm saying? Just like it was when I first came into this job. I was recruiting at the Division III level at Susquehanna, and, we were doing a really good job there, but this is another level. What you think Terry did when I got here? What you think, although I'm older than JK knew what that role is. What you think when I was looking at this job, what I did? Called on my brothers, my Penn State brothers. You know what I'm saying? So it's a whole nother feeling. I would argue, what other institution has Letterman in every single department in their program? And it was like freaking like 4 or 5 departments, maybe 6 departments within the program. It's crazy from when me and JK played. So, but we have a Letterman that's not only in those departments, starring in those departments, that have relationships with, and I don't want to say asked, because that's being a Penn Stater. You don't have to ask to do for another. Okay. That's woven into our DNA, but Franklin wants that. He wants that. That's the program that he probably envisioned when he sat back and thought about how I want Penn State to look when I get this job. And I mean, he's not only done it, but he's done it at a high level. And like when I look back, it's a masterpiece in how the departments are set up, how the Lettermen are placed. I mean, Deion Barnes is going to, when I tell you, Deion Barnes, he is going to be the best D-line coach in the country. He just, all he needs is experience coming. Yeah, that's right. Okay. The best defensive line coach in the country. Experience is going to give him that credibility. But this is not a job for him. This is the charge. This is what he was called to do, is affect these young guys that are Penn State Nittany Lions that once upon a time he was in their shoes. That's an awesome storyline. That's an awesome responsibility. And again, it's not a burden. That's what being a Penn Stater is. You feel what I'm saying? So, I mean, I love the connections. I love the relationships I have with the guys on the team. But truly, I want them to experience as I did and more. That's what gets me pumped up. To see them get success, have success in Beaver Stadium, and away from football after they graduate, bro, I mean, they ain't nothing like that. That's what it's about.
Man, I didn't think I had any more plays in me, man, but I think I got one. I got one. You got me amped up. I got one play. I can cover somebody one time, maybe hit somebody in the flat. Just one. I didn't think I had any, but I think I got one out there.
Little offense again. Get back out of wide receiver there, bud.
No, I would. If I had one play, man, I would like to tee somebody up in the flat. They don't see me turn in. Let me just get that contact one time.
AZ, you were talking about recruiting dogs and looking for violence. That's kind of the word, the description that I've heard about King Mac since he was recruited. Would you agree with that? Like, we haven't gotten to see a ton of him this season. He's still new to the program, but how could you describe King Mac?
He's exactly that. I mean, he's a guy that, again, and when I talk about playing with physicality or violence, I mean, really, that's a non-negotiable. That's a non-negotiable when you're talking about Penn State. And, King Mac would certainly, when I'm talking about like a guy like Zane Durant that, plays bigger than his stature, that's King Mac. You watch the tape, you forget about that. You're like, oh, man, my God, that's a baller right there. You know what I'm saying? And King Mac, coming out of high school, he's verified in terms of track and field. That's number one. Verified fast. And he's put together well. He's long. Length is another big trait that we look for. But his superpower is, when the ball is in the air, you watch his high school tape, when the ball is in the air, the ability to not only find that angle, get the point A to point B as fast as possible, and make a play on the ball before the offensive guy at the high point, and then finish a play, not just bat it down, finish it. And then his traits come into play once he has the ball in his hands. See his ability to not only flip the field, but he may score. He may score on you. You know what I'm saying? So he's a special guy. And like Zane, and they're both from Florida now. Okay, there's something about, we've gotten some guys from Florida. You see Cam Miller with 2 sacks last week. They got a certain disposition about themselves, way they go about their work, that the energy that they bring to the field and bring to work every day in practice. It's something infectious. King Mac's one of those guys. People gravitate to King Mac.
Question about King Mac.
Yes.
How has it been, him coming from like a powerhouse like St. Thomas Aquinas, right? How does he stack up when you see a freshman coming in from that versus like a normal high school, normal public high school? Like the things that you're naming about him, to me, just sounds like, oh, he's like a professional. He understands the business. He understands how to work. How much of that do you think comes from the high school program that he came from versus when you see guys from Wisconsin or just a normal high school?
Yeah, and Wisconsin has their powerhouses too. You know what I'm saying? Like every state does, but to your point, or to your question, is that's like recruiting one-on-one. What you, in a perfect world, you want to get players from a place where they understand the culture of winning, they know how to win. Okay. And usually teams that win and have a good culture, they probably got good coaches. You know what I'm saying? They're meaning, from when you talk about good coaches, you're thinking maybe like, man, X's and O's. Man, I'm talking about fundamentals. You know what I'm saying?
Shout out Coach Harriet. Shout out Coach Harriet down there at St. Thomas Aquinas.
Yeah, like fundamentals and the way, and then they're playing top tier talent now. They're not going against, the local county school that their rival that they only won 4 games that season. It's high intense competition. It's high level coaching with high level schematics, with high level training in the off season. So when you get a guy from a place like St. Thomas Aquinas, you're feeling like not every freshman's ready to play, but you're feeling like this cat might have a chance if he comes in and he does what we think he's going to do. I think he's going to have a chance because he's coming from such a high program and high standard.
That's a great point, man. It's a question that's brought up a lot just at the grassroots level of like, I mean, how much does the high school matter? And it's like, yeah, you can have some freaks that come from nowhere and that can develop, but coming from an organization or a operation where you're ready to make that seamless transition. I mean, it helped me you see Coach Smith or my pops when we were in high school, like everything that we were taught was like under his tutelage of Joe Paterno.
The thing that I would say though is it's not the end all be all, but there's an advantage.
There's an advantage. Just the parents that don't know, because I mean, you got to think parents now in high school, 8th, 9th grade, they're looking to transfer schools, trying to find the best opportunities and where it is, and understanding the benefits of like, okay, if you go to that school, it's not just you get recruited because you go to that school. No, you become a better player and have more value going to that school because of what you're going through. So if you're not going to go there and work, don't go to the school.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? So like, it just gets very nuanced in there. Like, yes, the players that come from some of these powerhouse programs like IMG there, Central Catholic in Pittsburgh, Bishop Gorman in Vegas. Yeah, players might come out ready, but they're also going in there with a different perspective of like, I'm approaching this like a business and I'm getting ready for a next level that, I mean, recreational players don't always have that perspective on. So it kind of goes hand in hand. No, man, this has been a great. Tom, you got anything else?
I do have to ask about kind of the big three at corner, AZ, Kalen King. We joke about it on the show, man. Like when you watch a Penn State game on TV, I don't know if I've heard Kalen King's name said outside of the starting lineups. And that's not because he's not doing anything. It's because he's locking people down. And that's what happens with lockdown corners. So we know he's having a great season. Johnny Dixon has also been all over the field. And I've said it for years on this platform, but Daquan Hardy had I don't even want to call it a coming out party, Justin, against UMass. And again, you look at the quality of the competition, and yeah, 2 punt returns for touchdowns. It's almost unprecedented. It's a big deal, and it gets people's attention. But I would argue he's the catalyst of this defense in that as a nickel corner who can do so many damn things, and now we see contributing in the kick return game. Can you just spend a little bit of time on King, Dixon, and Daquan, because those three are just stellar.
And we'll have a huge impact on the game this week. So like, this is like a great point. Yeah.
All right. So with King, you know, I remember when I came here in 2021, I believe he was a freshman. So like I remember coming into the indoor facility, and all of a sudden a play happened. Boom. It was in the low red. He picked the ball off on the 1 and ran it all the way for a touchdown. Okay. And they were like, oh my God, that's his second pick of the practice. And then they're getting to the next team period, and he picked another one off. He picked 3 of them off. I'm like, holy crap, this guy's going to have more picks than me when he leaves out of here. I'm like, and I literally told him that. I'm like, yo, because of the boy, King has the ability to finish plays. He's got true ball skills. But the thing that really, really jumped off the tape for me when I watched him in practice day in and day out, he can tackle, man.
Man, he will hit you, man.
He can tackle, man. Like when people talk about, tackling, they think about, man, you gotta knock him out. Man, those are gonna come. He's a sound rap tackler. Like, he's going to get you down to the ground. His aiming points are right where they need to be. Waistline to right above the knee. But he's a sound rap tackler. I love you. I mean, I don't know how you can play defense and not be a good tackler if you're trying to be a really, really good elite player. You got to be able to tackle if you're going to play defense. He's got that ball skills, but he's a technician. Now, let me tell you something. That's the common denominator in all 3 of these guys I'm talking about. They're technicians. Their feet are on point. Very, very rarely you see them where their feet are not where they're supposed to be, depending on the release. And I feel like when you play King, for an example, he's a master of all techniques. When you talk about press, it's just not one – this every time it looks the same. He's a master of all techniques. And there's a different variety of different techniques you can play at the line. King can do them all, okay? Without getting, too in depth and keeping you guys here for longer than needed, okay?
No,
Johnny Dixon, probably is a guy that one could argue might have the best feet on the team, which is crazy for me to think because King is that good in press man. Like, you tell me that who's better in the country than him, than Kalen King. But Johnny Dixon, I knew Johnny Dixon was going to be Johnny Dixon before the country knew. I mean, Johnny used to say, "Yo, I'm waiting for my chance. I'm waiting for my chance." I'm like, trust me. I see what you do out there in practice. He's a relentless competitor. Relentless. You catch a pass on him, it's going to bother him all day until he gets back out there in practice. And the trait that I really, really love about this young man, his ability to blitz. Best blitzing corner in the country. I'm biased, but check the film. Check the film, okay? He can blitz, man, and that's good. That is a great trait when you're talking about putting stuff on a resume and you're going to the next level. That's a great thing to have on your resume. And then, of course, he can, talk about press man and feet. I mean, he's a technician. Now let's get down to Day-Day. This is Day-Day is where it's at because Day-Day plays the role, which he's had this role for 4 years, JK? I mean,
this is his third full time kind of.
I'm talking about nickel.
Yeah, like full time.
3-year starter at nickel, which is anybody that's been a defensive back, you expect, or a cornerback, you're like, man, I want to get in the slot, but that's a different world. It's just like when you're talking about DNs moving inside. They got the temperament to be a defensive tackle. It's a totally different world in there. When you're playing corner, you're nickel. It's a completely different world. You feel, although there's people to the left, people to the right of you, you feel kind of like alone in that slot. And you're usually covering the most shifty guy they can possibly recruit to put in that position. That's supposed to just slide off things, get off a press, what have you. That's your job. That's your job description. And then on top of all that, okay, you can be a really good corner and say, I got really good feet and say, yeah, I can play in the slot. But you got to be able to process at an elite level because when it comes to the knowledge and the capacity to learn, and you have to know how to blitz. You got to be a good blitzer. You got to know how to zone drop. You got to know how to play catch man. You got to know how to play press man. You got to
know run fits. You got to know run fits. You got to know
run fits.
Run fits.
They are run fits. And then you might, depending if you're playing some type of invert or whatever, or you might be playing deep half. That's the reason why coming to Penn State as a cornerback, as a defensive back, is probably the best thing that you can do because when it comes time for you to go to the league, your resume is going to be filled with things that you're going to have a background in and experience in. Okay, different than when I was coming out of college.
Me too.
You know what I'm saying?
Because that was our knock, right? Single high side shuffle. Right. We play we lock stuff up, but like the dichotomy that the type of things that they're doing, like. How many blitzes did you go in 4 years? Probably less than Johnny.
Oh yeah. I made a couple, but there was like a couple of tackles, but it was like not more than 5 times
in your whole career. You probably seen that through the corners this year alone. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Cam Miller had 2 sacks. I mean,
Johnny Dixon, how many does he have? He got like a couple. He got a couple sacks too. I think
that's what I know. Last year he was like in top corner in the country. In
I know they sending him,
but. Day-Day's got so much. So when you're talking about the length and what he needs to know, you're talking about one of the brightest defensive minds on the defense. That's Day-Day. You know what I'm saying? So that he is truly when you talk about just a special player and all the things that encompasses Daquan Hardy, and then he wants to mess around and score 2 punt returns. So like that's a special player, guys. That's a special player. and he might be a little shorter than what they want the cornerbacks to be, or defensive backs to be, at 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", like the Joey Porters. That's all great. But when you got other elite qualities that is woven into your game, you can find yourself here at Penn State, and we will have a role for you, and we will put you in positions to be successful, just like Daquan Hardy has done all year, and he's missed 2 games. All year he's been like that. And since I've been here, that's all I know about Daquan Hardy. That's all I know. He comes to work, he a dog, and he doesn't have to talk much. It's about his play that matters, and really action speak louder than words.
Man, one of my favorites is Day, so I definitely appreciate.
Well,
you saying that.
He from
Hey, you know what time it is. That was my
last.
last recruit, man. Purple Dot, bring them in. No, but we put some amazing things on tape. But we talked about it a little earlier. Just the common fan not understanding the value of having an elite nickel cornerback, and like what shows up when that person's not there. Like the first couple of games, whether it's leaky runs, whether it's a little bit passes caught, and it's like when he came back, oh, boom, we got two shutouts. Old things starting to happen, interceptions, and like just that one glue nucleus. Because I would consider that the prime football position on defense, right? Like when you talk about being able to see everything, but like a playmaker in there, you got to have a feel for just the game of football, and
you got to be extremely savvy to disguise certain things.
You got to know what's going on.
Not all disguises make sense. It's got to make sense if you're feeling like you're looking like you're gonna blitz. It's got to make sense if you're, apex in 1 and 2, or you're on the edge of the box. It's like you got to understand the game at a different level than if you were just a cornerback. That's what makes him special.
Need fans to realize that, because we got some special stuff cooking back there, man. So that's awesome.
Alan, thank you for educating us. You can get a master's from Lockdown U from these two. Alan, I think we could do this for like 2 hours, but sincerely, we appreciate the time you've dedicated to this. And just again, we hit it earlier on in the episode, is that this Saturday, our recap show will be live here on our YouTube channel. It'll be Justin King and Derek Williams for the post-game show, which is going to be awesome. I will be missing it, unfortunately, but you guys will not be missing a thing with D Wheels and Jay King. So, Alan, thank you so much, and enjoy O State Week. I hope it's a successful trip to Columbus. Thank you all so much for joining us. This episode and our entire library of shows is available now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And of course, let us know what you think of the show on Twitter @TheKing1 and @TomHannafin. State of State is presented by Bet Online.